All right, my friends, welcome back to another V-Rising video. This is going to be a video going over dev update number 28, Fueled by Blood. And this one right away is going to be an absolute banger. This is probably the biggest single update that I've seen them include for the game's mechanics overall, probably ever. Maybe the closest thing for me would probably be like the spell point system and being able to choose which spells we get when, but this to me is going to be way bigger than that. So V-Rising is getting an overall to its biggest RPG mechanic. That is an understatement if I've ever seen one. So let's go ahead and get into this, Fueled by Blood. So I'm not going to read all of this, just going to go through and give you some of the highlights on this. So essentially it says, let's go from this right here. It says, from the earliest days of V-Rising development, when players first got their hands on the game, one thing was clear. There was a strong desire to bring your own unique vision of a vampire to life. What they mean by this is kind of like, you want to be able to make your vampire to have it be exactly the way you want it. They talked about like, yeah, you know, we have a bunch of different armor stuff where you can decide what armors what you're using and how you look. You know, like in the game is pretty cool, but you know, what about actually changing how you play the game stat-wise? So they went through all of this, and they essentially are saying that they're reworking all the math in the game and you know, stats and specific statistics and numbers, which is honestly it is a huge deal. So let's go ahead and look at this. So step one, cap all ability statistics. So essentially what that means is there's going to be a soft cap and a hard cap on your stats. So let's look at this here. This is just, again, all these are placeholders just to give you an idea. So for instance, you have the dark red bar. This is how close you are to reaching the cap, and the bright red is how far over the cap you've gone. So like, let's say the dark red, the cap is right here. So dark red right here. It's like, okay, so this is, the cap is right here, obviously all the way to the end. And then the bright red is, hey, you actually have more physical crit chance than you can even use. So super interesting idea. So here it is, bonus over cap. Bonus over cap, so 5%. So hey, you're using 5% too much, right? So soft cap versus hard caps. This is where it gets really important, really interesting. We're implementing caps in two ways, soft caps and hard caps. These determine how bonuses apply and whether further increases are limited, meaning I would imagine what that means is like further increases are like diminishing returns. I'm not 100% sure yet. Soft caps are the first line of defense to keep stats from becoming problematic. So essentially what they were talking about in this paragraph up here is just the idea of how like move speed, for instance, is a big offender with how insanely powerful it is whenever you stack stats. So before 1.0, you couldn't really stack all that much move speed. The biggest move speed gains you can get, other than like, you know, Rogue Blood or whatever, was Blood Rage and Power Surge. You know, stacking both those together, that was like the biggest way you could get a huge speed boost. But those are obviously very limited in that once they're gone, you don't have them anymore, right? So you can't move super fast. Move speed's always been really good. But it just exploded with the introduction of like the Dracula's Shadow set and all the other ways you can increase your movement speed in the game. It just became such a big problem. Being able to basically just walk out of things that you otherwise couldn't walk out of, right? So we've talked about this endlessly, but just to really visit exactly why that's a problem. Really briefly is just imagine you using something like the spell Void or Bone Explosion and somebody is just able to walk out of the AoE without even using a dodge. It makes it very difficult to deal with, right? To make that feel balanced in any way. Okay, so hard caps, absolute upper limit. So yes, it's first line of defense. You'll encounter these soft caps through long-term sources like gear, potion, passive spell bonuses, and blood types. Hard caps are the absolute upper limit of what you can reach and are just another safeguard. Examples of this, things that bypass a soft cap, are temporary buffs, like ones you get from spells. So this would be like Blood Rage Power Surge. This ensures that abilities and buffs still feel impactful without breaking the game. After all, it wouldn't be fun to see abilities stop working just because your stats are too good. Yeah, so this makes a lot of sense. So yeah, Let's see here. So we have a bunch of things. Yeah, we broke down stat bonuses at the max level to cap in very even and expected ways, so that it's easy to break down where you're getting bonuses from, and thus easy to plan out how to get stats you want. We've reworked gear, blood, potions, and passive spell tree bonuses to make it so you can accurately and easily plan out how to cap the stats you want, and maybe even be able to do it without making a spreadsheet. Yeah, funny. That's a hilarious idea because I made a spreadsheet just for this video here, just to talk about my points. So I don't know about that. You can make a spreadsheet if you want, though. I know some of you really like making spreadsheets. Yeah, who's that? I don't know. Probably me and quite a few others. Okay, let's talk about soft caps and hard caps. This is a pretty common thing you see in a lot of video games. Makes a lot of sense, honestly. Helps you keep things under control. Here's some questions I have. So first, soft caps. Is it a maximum allowable by your gear and blood? Or is there like diminishing returns? So it says bonus overcap 5%. The reason I'm asking this is you look at this right here. Physical crit chance 40%, right? But this says attribute bonus total 37 and you're 5% over the cap. So I'm wondering, is it just diminishing returns? Like, is this red over the cap kind of like being cut in half, right? So if we get a 5% over the cap, are we only getting 2.5%? You know, 2.5% plus 37 is about 40%. Is it rounding up? You see what I'm saying? Like, I think that's what's happening. So I'm not sure if it's diminishing returns or if this is just like an uh-oh on the UI calculation, you know, like the numbers on the UI where like on this UI, it's 40% is the cap, but then they decided 37 was gonna be the cap. I don't know. So the other thing, one of the most obvious things here for me, why I think this is a really important thing, would be like, for them to be able to fix and like rebalance all this would be Scholar Blood currently. In the current state of the game, if you run 100% Scholar Blood, you have hit the cap for spell CDR. Just by running Scholar. Like, just 100% Scholar will give you 40% spell CDR. Which means like, if you then run the Maleficer set and like Spellweaver Amulet, you just don't get to have the spell CDR from those items. It just doesn't give them to you. So I would imagine what they're saying, you know, it says like, it's going to make it like, it makes it very even in expected ways. I would imagine that's kind of what they're referring to there. But I'm interested to see like what exactly is the max, like what exactly is the soft cap? How do we reach them and how does that happen? And then in terms of hard caps, so will spells bring us to the hard cap, or are they allowing us to go over them? So they mentioned like, hey, it would suck if you like, you know, right here it says it would suck if abilities stopped working because you like broke the game or whatever because your stats were too good. What I'm curious about this is, how are we hitting those? How exactly are we hitting those, right? So what I mean by that is, if this bonus over the cap is diminishing returns, do spells bypass this bonus over cap, or do they like add to the bonus over cap, but like because you're already at the cap, they give you less? So for instance, if I'm like let's say the bonus max move speed is like, let's just say it's 20%, okay? But then if I use Blood Rage and Power Surge, will the bonus percentage there, will it give me that, you know, whatever it is, like 40% max bonus movement speed, or is it going to be cut because I'm using both of them and I've already hit the soft cap? Am I going to get diminishing returns on those? So using both is only going to give me like an extra 10%. If that's the case, that's actually pretty interesting. It's an interesting way to balance those spells, because as it stands right now, like Blood Rage is just stupidly overpowered. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that works. The other thing is, I'm also curious about like, what about attack speed? Like, is attack speed going to do the same thing? Like, are we going to get so much attack speed from like, you know, static dash plus axe Q plus Blood Rage Power Surge or something, and then like blood type that we're just going to be attacking? Like, is it going to be like a soft cap with that? What exactly does that look like? Because if you do all that right now, it's actually hilarious how fast you can attack. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. And the other thing, what about things like Wings of the Fallen, right? So that weapon, when you press E, gives you bonus movement speed, like a lot of bonus movement speed. Because it not only does it already give you bonus movement speed when you press E with your slashers, but with Wings of the Fallen, it gives you, on top of that, even more movement speed. So I'm curious to see if that is now just like randomly nerfed because of this, or what exactly, you know, that looks like. So anyway, yeah, so give you the tools. We talked about the Fusion Forge already. So but it's a really nice idea. This is going to basically allow us to totally match those types of things. It says, you know, we'll be making changes to armor, blood types, potions, and passives, right? So, all right, let's go ahead and get to blood here. This is, in my opinion, this is the biggest change they've ever made to this game mechanically. This is such a gigantic deal. I'm really excited about this. I guarantee you there is a certain vampire by the name of Fel that I know who is either jumping for joy at this or skeptically looking at this like, what have you done to make this worse? So I'm not sure what his thoughts on this are going to be. It's a guy in our community in the Discord. So if you want to, you know, have some conversations, feel free to join that. The link is going to be in the description. Super fun to chat with people about, you know, theory crafting and whatnot. If you like that kind of stuff, we do that all the time. So, okay, so blood gives stats now. So it's funny, but like it already did. So I don't really understand what this means, but yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. I already did that, but yeah, right. Okay, I think what they mean here is just like every blood does. So here's where it gets interesting. All around overhaul to blood types. We wanted to make blood types, except for worker blood, of course, have applications in battle and give you more options to use in combat. So creature blood, mutant blood, they're like interesting little utility things have been moved to the passive spells instead, which that's super interesting. Actually makes a lot of sense. I wonder exactly, but here's the thing though. I want to know what that looks like for the Altar of Stygian Awakening, because the altar is not available until you hit whatever it is, tier 3 castle. So it's significantly further down the line. So I'd be very interested to see what exactly those utility, what they consider utility and what they don't. So there's going to be certain things that we used to have access to that we will no longer have access to until we get the Altar of Stygian Awakening and then can farm Stygian shards. So we'll have to see what that looks like. I'm really curious exactly what that looks like in those. So so here's where it gets really interesting too. It says, as you progress into later stages of the game, you'll often have your preferred blood type on hand, and we've taken that into account. We've revisited the availability of certain blood types when they appear in your journey and how you acquire them overall. That is a very interesting concept, okay? I haven't fully digested this and how they're going to be able to do that, but I actually like the idea that there's like rare blood types or difficult to attain blood types that are like later on in your journey, instead of just like, I go to Mortium to get my Draculan blood, I go to Gloomrot to get my mutant blood or whatever, you know. It's like, hey, actually you can't even get this stuff until way later on. Also, here's an interesting concept with the new, I doubt this, but with the new stuff, the new zone, are we going to see a new blood type? Maybe, I don't know. So yeah, it says here, rare blood types should be easier to obtain, and you'll even be able to capture mutant spitters in Gloomrot, so you can keep mutant blood on tap. Also, they are servants, right? So super interesting there. I'm not surprised by that. I think everybody was asking for this the moment they released Gloomrot, and they made it so it was possible to get creature blood on tap with werewolves, and then suddenly you could also not get mutant blood. Everyone was like, huh? Wait a minute. And then Draculan comes out, you can get Draculan blood, and then like you couldn't get mutant blood. It was like, what? Come on. So yeah, here's a little spitter in the cage. You got it like that. Okay, so yeah, so essentially, just really before we get into that, just the idea of seeing it later on in the game is really interesting. Like, what if we don't see something like warrior for a long time, or, you know, whatever that blood type is. Scholar blood is like a rare blood in like Silverlight. You won't see it till Silverlight, that kind of thing. And then here's what makes it interesting. Actually, I just thought about this. Is there a world where you are able to like sneak into a high level zone and capture a rare blood type, or like a blood type you wouldn't normally have access to until later on at a lower level? You know me, and we always got to think about these ways to like get around these little things here, right? So is that going to be a thing? Are we going to be able to sneak into like, you know, some spot and be able to get Draculan blood way early? And if Draculan blood's what we want, you know, that kind of thing. Very interesting concept here. So Here it goes. You might find yourself in an awkward position with this rework and the whole stat overhaul. You may want the stats from one blood type, but the special ability from another. Thankfully, some of Doran's invaders happen to be skilled alchemists. After drinking their blood, you'll gain the ability to craft a new station, the Blood Mixer. With this new workbench, you'll be able to perform brilliant blood alchemy, mixing bonus effects from other bloods to better tailor your blood type to your build. So, I don't know what to think about this. First we'll go through the blood types and I'll show you an example that they gave about what that means, mixing bloods. So worker blood, obviously it's just worker blood. Creature blood, increased health, health regen, movement speed, healing received, resistances, and a heal and temporary attack speed buff on vampire bite. Very interesting. I actually like the idea of this being kind of like a little more tanky movement, healthy, high health, stuff like that. Warrior, all about weapons and weapon skills, largely focused on giving benefits around weapons and skill cooldowns for your weapons. So that means no longer are we seeing parry options on Warrior. Much like before, focused on movement speed, physical crit chance, and physical crit damage. Yep, fair enough. Brute. This blood type is still focused on healing and some light physical power like before, but it's now acquired Warrior's ability to parry, making it tankier up close and up close and personal blood type. I'm pretty sure this is literally, I talked about some suggestions that we've seen in Discord and stuff, and another vampire Fell who talked a lot about this. I'm pretty sure this is his exact suggestion. Like literally this, I believe, is his exact suggestion to make it specifically like be the tanky blood type. Very interesting. I actually I'm going to be really curious to see how that feels. How building Brute and like having the ability to parry. Parry is, by the way, if you don't know this, parry is, if I had to rank it, I mean, it's the top 3 strongest effects on blood in the game easily, right? So movement speed is just huge. Recast from Scholar is huge. And right there with all those is the parry option from Warrior. It is ridiculously powerful. And the reason why is because when you parry something, right now as it stands, it's like a 40% damage reduction on that ability. So it's just so powerful. So if somebody's hitting you with 100 damage, you're taking 60 damage instead, right? I mean, it's just such a strong function. Okay, so Scholar, now one of a handful of spell-focused blood types. Thank you. This is amazing. Scholar maintains its ability to free cast spells occasionally, but it focuses on defensive spell power. In addition, it also resets your cooldowns when you use your ultimate ability. So, wrapping my head around this, what they mean by defensive spell power, I think, is going to be like your barriers, right? Your just shields, overshield that you get from using things like Aegis, Phantom Aegis and things. Resetting the abilities on cooldown, or sorry, resetting your spell cooldowns on ult use. Scholar already is like, the whole point of playing Scholar is a combo blood. It's just a full-on combo build. And it seems like they're like leaning into that even more so with this. So I'm really curious to see exactly what this feels like. Obviously it doesn't actually, it says down here in Draculum, this is where the spell crits and the spell leech are. So like, I don't know if you can combine these 2 spells and then keep the ability to reset your cooldowns whenever you cast your ult. Scholar might be a little bit overpowered, kind of game breaking potentially, depending on how all of this plays out. So as of right now, there's a lot of, like I said, Scholar's whole thing is just combo focused. And if you can, the one of the issues that you find with Scholars, things like Crystal Lance or like Mosquito or whatever, where like things fear you, or you can combo with freeze abilities, but not getting your resets can kind of make or break those combos in a lot of ways, like depending on what the combo is or how those combos perform. And being able to fully reset your cooldowns, like guaranteed with your ult. So if you didn't know, you can actually use certain abilities to cancel an ultimate mid cast. So like, what happens if you just use your ult to get the recast? Like that's actually an option you could do with this. So for instance, you like, do your full combo, and while they're stunned, you just like tap your ult, cancel it, and then depending on what ult it is, obviously, if you tap your ult, cancel it, and then just instantly keep going with a combo, there is potential for some truly ludicrous combos with this overall. Not really sure what that's going to look like. Very interesting overall. I'm actually curious to see what it looks like when you mix it with Draculin. So Draculin, another spell-focused blood type. This one is more offensive aspects. So small chance of awarding free casts. So can you like combine both of these to have tons of free casts? But you know, can you pick both? But it focuses more on spell, critical hits, and leech. Spell, critical hits, and leech. Okay. So spell crit, small chance for recast. Leech is fine. That's always nice. But then mutant, the summoner's blood. This now increases spell power. Increases spell power. Very interesting. Summoned minion damage. Oh man. All of you necromantic players out there, all you little minion guys, you guys just rejoiced at that. This is a crazy concept, especially for PvE. And the recovery rate of your ultimate ability. It also spawns mutant rats when you cast your ultimate. For all the vampires who dreamed of the ability to control mutant rats, this one is for you. I can tell you right now, I know of one vampire who is losing his mind over this. Absolutely losing his mind over this. That is that is a pretty cool change. So, all right, actually I know a lot of vampires are going to lose their mind over this. So, okay, so blood type. So here's an example here. This says warrior rogue. Let's just break down what we're looking at here. So this is like warrior blood and rogue blood. There's a lot going on here. 10% increased physical power, and veil attacks deal 30% bonus damage. 10% increased physical power is so much. That's such a big number. And veil attacks deal 30% bonus damage. So like 10%, what? 10% at max is like, that's a huge number. Okay. Increased weapon skill cooldown recovery rate and 6% increased weapon skill leech. This is really nice. This is kind of a combination of two different things. That's really good. I mean, weapon skill cooldown, super nice. 20% increased weapon skill efficiency, and 24% increased damage when striking enemies at full health. I don't know what this is. First I was like, is that like supposed to be like the new name for attack speed? But it doesn't make any sense because weapon skill efficiency isn't that. So what I'm curious about is like, is this like increasing the values of weapon skills? So like it increases the amount of damage. So for instance, if a weapon skill does like 100% of your physical damage, is this going to be like 20% additional on top of that? Does it like increase like, oh, it's incapacitated for 1 second? Is this going to be like 20% increased to the incapacitate rate? I don't know what this even is. I have no idea what this is. If you have any inkling of what this could be, please feel free to post in the comments because I legitimately have no clue what this is. All right. 12% increased weapon free cast. Okay. This right here, when I saw this, I was like, they are out of their minds. Do you even know what this means? What this means is you and your duo run this blood, get 12% increased cast, get 20% boosted, percent chance on this. And then hee hee ha ha, oopsie daisy, I just slasher eat somebody. And then me and my duo, oopsie daisy, just both got weapon free casts on our spear queues. And we're just gonna like really casually quad spear queue this one guy and remove him from the face of the earth. This is what that means to me. So this is crazy. I actually can't believe this is even a stat they're considering, but we'll have to see how it plays out, I guess. And then infused blood, you take these from the rogue side. 12% chance to physically crit on weapon attacks, 10% increased physical crit strike power, 50% chance to expose, right? This is just those two things from rogue. Really, really strong. This is a ridiculous looking blood type. Seriously crazy. Seriously crazy. So real quick, we're going to speed up here. Oh yeah, actually, let's talk about what this means. So, two things on this. So first, this blood gives like so many stats. It seems to me like it might give too many stats overall. And like, obviously the specific values down here, it says specific values, etc. are subject to change. Those aren't final. But the amount of stats that are being increased by this blood are so insane right now. If you read through all this, there's power, veil attacks, weapon skill cooldown, weapon skill life leech, efficiency, whatever that is, additional damage striking enemies at full health, then boosted everything, weapon skill, light, free cast, and then like crit chance, physical crit strike power, 50% chance to explode. Like there's so many things happening just from this single blood type that I am nervous about this. And the reason why, there's two potential really big issues here. First one is the difference between frail blood and like fully jacked Giga Chad 100% blood is now even bigger than it already is. Like already that's a huge problem that's really hard to overcome. But like if you're really good, you can still like overcome it. This is just massively increasing that gap even more. Like huge increase to the gap between frail and 100% blood, or even just like 50% blood and 100% blood. This is a gigantic increase on that, like, or gap between that. That's problem number one. Problem number two is, when are we able to get this blood mixer? I think what they seems like they're implying is this is going to be much later on in the run that we're going to be able to start mixing bloods. And what that does is it's going to extend the gap between lower level players and end game even more. Okay. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I'm not sure if this, I mean, it's a really crazy and cool and interesting concept. And this is honestly just like, I have to see the specific like stat numbers to really wrap my head fully around it. But overall, this is a really interesting change, but I'm nervous about what this means for balancing through the play group, for your playthrough. Okay, equip yourself with power. So from what it seems, is the gear sets specifically, they're just going to change these up a little bit to kind of match what they wanted to do here. So Dracula's Dread used to be kind of more like physical damage reduction plus physical power. This is like the warrior set. They've kind of moved it a little bit. So now it's like, instead of physical power and damage reduction, now it's 1.5% bonus physical power, which is insane if you think about what that means. So at max, that's going to be another 6% on top of the warrior blood, which was 10% if it maxed out. Like, there's so much bonus physical power happening here. I'm really curious to see what the max cap is on this. I mean, are we gonna have like 70, 80 physical power? Like, what's it gonna look like? And then also you can see here, we swapped out what the stat bonuses are. Increased weapon skill cooldown, it still has that. Increased veil damage, still has that. And then right here, instead of healing and shields or whatever change, it's going to be weapon skill efficiency. Again, I don't know what that is. If somebody knows, please let me know. If somebody has an idea, let me know. So I think an interesting thing about this, from what I can tell, you won't be able to change what's on the armor, which I like a lot, actually. I think they need to reel in being able to pick exact stats on everything. That's just a little too much. This to me kind of means that armor is going to very much be a pretty significant deciding factor of what your quote unquote build is. So interested to see what that looks like. Okay, here we go. Second thing here is going to be a wide array of stat buff potions. So it says that you're going to have way more buff potions to choose from, but you can only use one at a time. Here's the elixir of the bat, for example here. A brew that consists of spell life leech, 8%, and spell cooldown reduction 10% for 60 minutes. This is super cool. Gonna be interesting to see what the other options are on this. I really like this. But one thing to keep in mind on this, similar to the blood mixer, is I really want to know when these are going to become available, because these stats are huge. That's a gigantic. First of all, we need to know what elixirs are going to be available, and what the stats, let's say what stats they're going to be, and when we're going to have access to be making these. What's really going to be important too is if we're going to be able to buy these at a potion vendor. So right now, if you are under leveled and don't have access to, like, Potion of Rage or Witch Potion for physical and spell power, you can technically go check the vendor in Silverlight and buy them for Gold Sun, which you can farm from containers. So like, you could be under leveled and still go get those. That is an option. That is an ability. It is something you can do, at least to bridge the gap between like in game and like mid game and whatnot. So like, you can still kind of bridge the gap there, right? So I really hope these are something that we're able to buy, reasonably able to buy, similarly to the current Witch and Rage potions, because if they're not, this is going to be yet another gap between end game, because like it says, this is going to be later on. This is going to be a bigger gap between end game or like late game, yeah, end game and like late game and mid game. Because I mean, what happens if, you know, I'm cruising around and instead of having, you know, Brew of Ferocity or whatever, you know, some guy is out here and suddenly, you know, if I have whatever, I don't have that potion, and somebody else is out here, like, you know, I'm 10 levels higher than you. Sorry, if someone else is 10 levels higher than me, and I can make, or they can make the, you know, Elixir of the Mole Rat or whatever for move speed and crit chance, and I don't have access to that, that's going to be very, very brutal. All right, so scrolling through here, the third most applicable thing is going to be the Fusion Forge. So I was actually curious about this. I like the idea of orange weapons having fixed stats. I actually think that's really nice. But it looks like here we are going to be able to adjust those as well. I actually like what we look like here. The UI here is really easy to understand here. So we'll be able to adjust these orange weapons and pick out specific stats similar to what that Fusion Forge, you know, UI was showing. There's a few things I'm noticing here, a few things I wanted to talk about on this. So first things first, let's talk about the really good stuff here. It looks like from what I can see here, I think what it's trying to say is that there are now 4 tiers or like ranges, if that makes sense, of the specific stats, which thank goodness, that is actually another one of the things that I suggested. I was like, can we not have such ridiculously high stat variance on our weapons? Like, I've talked about this a million times. Like, why is it like, you know, 10% to 20% critical damage bonus, but there's like decimal points? So it's like 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, all the way up to 20%. Like, it's just like pointless random decimal amounts. So this doesn't make any sense. So having 4 different stages like this is exactly what I mentioned. I was like, you need to either make the variance significantly lower, you know, whenever you're allowing us to pick our stuff, or get rid of it altogether, right? So significantly lower, this makes a lot of sense. It also is easy to understand when you have the max roll, right? So it's, oh, there's 4 little corners that are all filled in. That means we have the max roll here. And this is really good because it makes it so hunting for those values, hunting for those things is now like a reasonable option. So we can go and be like, okay, let me find every single one of the great swords I possibly can, because I really want to hunt down like max movement speed or max bonus health or whatever it is. So that's the good of this. The bad / questionable, where I'm not sure about, is being able to modify orange weapons is kind of going to make them even more best in slot than a lot of them already are. So in the current state of the game, you know, kind of depends on what you want to run in some of the cases, right? Some of these things, it kind of depends on what you want to run. There is like, so for instance, Thousand Storms, it's a very good and it is best in slot in a lot of ways. However, if you're going for pure damage, there is a technical higher roll that you can get with that. In terms of stats on a spear, you could get a static spear with bonus spell power, and then physical crit chance and physical crit damage. That is technically going to be more damage than like overall potential damage on a spear queue than a Thousand Storms. But this right here makes it possible to be able to just get a perfect Thousand Storms. So and Thousand Storms E ability is just extremely good. There's reasons to use the normal spear E if you're in a raid and you're like fishing for people. You're trying to pull people either into your castle and close the doors, or out of a castle so your team can focus them down. That's really good. But other than those scenarios, Thousand Storms E is just strictly better. The other issue with this is it kind of, I don't know, it kind of feels like it could potentially cheapen some of the stuff. I don't know, some of your purples. It just feels like it's going to cheapen a lot of your purple items, where it's like, oh yeah, I found this one thing, and it just doesn't matter anymore because you could just get, you know, whatever. You could just get cloud dancers or whatever it is. But regardless, I think this is overall going to be a good thing. Another thing is like, so Siren's Wail, for instance, normally right now it has spellcaster stats on it, but you could just make it like to maximize the Siren's Wail combo with Greatsword Q into Siren's Wail E, and then into an auto attack. You could just maximize that with like physical crit power, physical crit chance, and like bonus crit damage, and I don't know, maybe there's physical power on these as well. I'm not 100% sure, but you could just, you know, see what I'm saying? Like, you could just max it all out on Siren's Wail, and now instead of critting for, you know, 220 damage, now it's going to crit for like 300 damage. So and it's like a guaranteed true combo kind of thing, you know? So we'll have to see how that plays out. Something that is interesting is bonus maximum health. Instead of flat amount, it's now a percentage. So, and it said up top, it said, I think it was a creature gives another bonus max health. So I'm actually curious about how much this max health, what's the cap on this? Because like, is there a world where you get like 50%, where you have like plus 500 bonus health and you're at like 1500 HP, and then you like mix bloods or something and you're rocking like, oh, I'm going to run like 1500 HP, but I'm also going to have like the parry and, you know, damage reduction mechanics. So now I have 1500 HP and I take, you know, 30% damage reduction, and I have the parry option. So all of a sudden, you know, we're just going to be in a situation, and I'm going to run like barriers or something. Is that going to be a thing where you can just suddenly have like an unkillable tank who just literally won't die because he's just constantly using shields and parrying and damage reduction? He has 1500 HP, and like a spear Q hits him and it just like tickles him, or, you know what, and then he spear Qs you, and because you're not running his build, it's going to, you know, chunk you for a quarter of your health. What exactly is that going to look like? I'm curious about to see what that looks like. So, and then the third, less statistic related addition will mix up gameplay even more, but we're saving that for a later surprise for a little later. I'm curious about what that means. Here's Spooky Boy from the new area. He looks pretty cool. I really love this aesthetic a lot. And then magic in the air, spell passives. So talking about passives, new major contributing factor to your character stats. These are ancient powers you tap into with the Altar of Stygian Awakening. So now you choose which passive you have active at any given time, turn them into a more engaging dynamic part of your build, instead of something you simply unlock and forget. So this is really good. I think the passive system was it's a great idea, but just was not implemented super well in 1.0, and this is looking like it's going to be way better. A lot of people were asking for this to be able to like specifically pick their stuff so they can actually, like, you know, have exact builds that they want. That's pretty cool. And as you gain more spell points, you unlock additional spell slots. You can see down here you have like slots for your passives. Very cool. New blood school spell. I would imagine this means that there's going to be new spells for every, like one spell for every single blood school, or sorry, every single spell school. Super interesting to see what those look like. I want to know what the new spells are. Very exciting. And here's like a just little placeholder UI for this. You can see like, hey, I had all these spells and here's some passive abilities. You can put them in here. And then some examples of what they look like here. Increased cooldown recovery rate and ultimate efficiency. Again, what does the efficiency even mean? I don't know. And then right here, 16% chance to summon a skeleton mage when it perishes. Target perishes. Minions deal 16% bonus damage. So more minion damage. Super big deal here. And then increased physical crit strike power by 12% and increases damage against V-Bloods by 8%. So I believe what this means is they always put this "and" in a weird spot when they word these things. I don't really understand why. Please just make this a little clearer, guys, so we understand. Is this physical crit strike power 12% period? Oh, by the way, it also gives 8% to V-Bloods? Or is this 12% crit, 8% damage against V-Bloods? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's always like just a little bit vague, just a little vague enough to be confusing. So I hope that they make this a little more clear. This looks insane. Increased physical crit, increased primary attack speed by 12%, 20% more damage on static. This is obviously, you know, we have stuff like this. It's very, very strong. Cold Soul, spell crit chance by 12, 8% increased damage to chilled and frozen enemies. This is really good, especially for like a scholar combo build. This is crazy. And then that is it for now. Yeah, so overall, this is, like I said, this video is super long, but I think it just has to be if you are a nerd like me and you've been playing this game for, you know, since early access, you're really, or even if you've been playing it since, you know, 1.0, whenever, and you just really enjoy this kind of nerdy theory crafting. This is, in my opinion, the single biggest change they've ever made to this game. This is a full rework of stat and, like it says, the RPG. I mean, it's going to be more than just the RPG mechanics. This is a full rework to like meta. It's full rework to combat, full rework to progression, how everything feels, power spikes, full rework to every single aspect of combat in the game is what this means. So very, very, other than, you know, just getting good and learning how to play the game and being able to use abilities. Other than that, you're still gonna have to do that. Still gonna have to learn weapon swapping if you need to. I promise you can do it. But this is just overall, this is a huge change. Very interesting stuff here. But anyway, that is going to be it for now. If you have anything to add, feel free to put it in the comments. Super long video, but I hope you enjoyed it. And we will catch you in the next one.